Welcome to the Real Recovery Show. Today's episode is on Alcoholics Anonymous and applying the 12 steps and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to more than just not drinking or using drugs. And this is our first episode where we get to wear a mask. Well, I'm not wearing a mask, but she's wearing a mask, our guest. We were trying to figure out what to do because we wanted to make sure that we stayed true to what we said in our first episode about anonymity and respecting the traditions and making sure that nobody broke their anonymity at the level of press, radio, TV, and films. One of the things, of course, we could do is just go radio only for those episodes, but because we have people that have been watching the videos, they would just see a blank screen or they would just see my face the whole time. And I don't know how many faces I can make to go through that whole time where you're just not then bored of me. But then all of a sudden it occurred to us with Halloween approaching at the time, et cetera, that, you know what, we could use masks and that would be fun. And that would be a cool little extra thing that we could do. We could have real fun masks. And so that's what we're going to do. And today is our first episode with a mask. So over the years, and even when I was growing up, I was exposed to 12-step recovery. And I learned that you can go to meetings and you could even do the 12 steps. But if you're not really applying the principles of this in all your affairs, then you may have relief and you may have abstinence from alcohol and drugs, but you're not necessarily going to have that overall shift in perception that allows you to have a more empowered perspective and to face life and live life on life's terms. Because just because you get sober off of alcohol and drugs doesn't mean that everything is going to be dandy after that. You're not necessarily going to not experience any challenges because the same programming that went into addiction is still there. It's just shifting little by little. And as we go through any type of recovery, more gets revealed. I personally have experienced learning so much after not having alcohol and drugs. It's coming up on 24 years. I still, I've walked through so many things. I've gone through major health issues, financial issues, physical, emotional, mental, everything. And I've had to learn not just to do everything that I had to walk through without alcohol and drugs, which, by the way, is a huge thing in and of itself, because when the fecal matter hits the oscillating device, there's still this part of my mind that says, what can I do to not deal with this? But we learn to step up. We learn to face stuff. We learn to heal. We learn to shift our perception. We learn to rely deeper and deeper on a power greater than ourselves and on a network that we build in our recovery. And so yeah, I'll also say this. I feel like I've heard a lot of people who gave AA a try, who said that, they got sober and they went to some meetings and they maybe had a sponsor for a second and maybe did some of the steps, but they don't need it anymore, right? Which is fine. Everybody has there's so many tools people can use in this world, whatever resonates. This is not to say that one way is better than any other way. But when I hear that, I tend to look for how are they doing now? What have they been doing? If they're not doing 12-step recovery, what are they doing in their life to keep growing? Are they in therapy? What are they doing to keep enlarging their spiritual condition? Are they meditating and praying? Have they returned to maybe a certain type of religious practice, one in which that really helps them to stay more accountable as well and go deep and rely more and more on intuition and not on, self, the story of who we think we are and what we think we need to be a certain way for us to be okay in this world. And so I find, and I'm not saying this was a sociological study. It's all just people I've interacted with over the years. But I have found that people sometimes who have an attitude about 12-step recovery in general, that it's just, they left it, they didn't need it, but their definition of it was one in which the only purpose for it was to stop drinking or using drugs. And if you have that kind of definition for interpretation for what 12-step recovery is about, of course you might think then you could stop using it. If you feel like you don't have any desire to drink or do drugs or something like that. But oftentimes, if you look a little closer, they've maybe switched seats on the Titanic, right? They may be doing other behaviors, or they might be really controlling their life in certain ways because they can't go certain places or do certain things because they are afraid that they might be tempted to do certain things. And what I've observed in 12-step recovery, I run a meeting facility with lots of different 12-step programs, and this is true about most of them, is that people who go to a 12-step program and really work the 12-step program become freer to be able to go anywhere that they have a good reason to be, without ending up at risk of doing the behavior that they have been focused on not doing anymore. And so, so the person that I have on the show today has walked through a lot of things, and she's a beautiful person with she's real, she's loud, she's not apologetic. She will tell you how she really feels, what she really did. She's not going to hide it. She's not going to sugarcoat it. And she's not going to try to sound pretty. She's beautiful, but she's not going to try to sound pretty. And I love people like that because everybody has been spending so much time focused on what they look like, what they sound like, that on the inside, they're dying. And that's what this whole show's about. It's the real recovery show with real people sharing real stories, because we need to break that bullshit. We need to be real. We need to talk about what's really going on so that people can really hear what they need to hear, rather than a message that encourages them to be more fake, right? Because being fake is what? Stuffing your feelings, avoiding issues, and pretending that everything's okay when it's not. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce Gretta with her cute little mask. I love this. And so she's going to start sharing, and then I'll just pepper in and ask questions as we go. And she'll start off and tell how it was when she was growing up and start from there.
All right. Well, I'm Gretta. Thank you for having me. How it was for me, and it's amazing that we get to talk, that you've asked me to come at this particular time in my life, with things going on in my life that has come up, and so I was raised rowdy. And my family, they were bikers, they were bikers. And, many times, there was a lot of parties, drug-filled, alcohol always filled parties, knock down, drag out. I remember this one house we used to have, and I drive by it on 95 going to visit family, and it had an outside door to every single room, like the bathroom, the washroom, the living room, my bedroom. Every room had an outdoor. Wow. To get out of the house.
Wow.
And there was, and I, now that I think back of it, it's like, run, get out.
Yeah.
Get out fast, and that's kind of how it was. I was raised on tactical alert. Pretty much, there was a lot of parties. I was the eldest of two. And I have a younger sister, and I helped raise her, sneaking around parties, shaking beer cans, hoping that I didn't get anything foul when I took the last drink, or hopefully last drink,
Right.
I don't consider that my first drink. I was sneaking,
Right.
My first drink, was 190 proof Everclear. My grandfather was a bootlegger, and in the desert we have lots of refrigerators, and there was this one refrigerator that was the liquid refrigerator, And I had this thing, and I remember stealing it was a mayonnaise jar, a small mayonnaise jar, with light pink liquid in it. And I told my grandfather that before he passed, I told him that story. He goes, "That was 190 proof raspberry Everclear."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "What?" I didn't even know.
Right.
But I remember taking it back to my room, aka trailer.
How old were you?
I was 12. Yeah. Many times my parents would drop us off with family members, friends, and so on and so forth. And we would be staying the weekend. And the weekend would end up being they would enroll us in school. And I was always mad. I was the kid sitting on the front porch with my bags packed, waiting for the never coming parents, that they would always wait. And then they'd come on in, have dinner, and I always that long face drop, and anyway, so one time I was at my grandparents' house and they were enrolling us in school, and I was going to school, and I remember stealing that liquid. There was a lot of things that had happened that led up to that first drink. I didn't have God in the house. We were not raised with God in the house. Bikers, drugs, alcohol, sex was a big thing, like half naked women, like it was like you knew, like we knew right away, being real young, grew up real fast, and so like my great grandmother, she was a member of the Kingdom Hall. I don't know no different. I don't have any slander for any of that. All I know is that I'm a little kid being drugged to church against my will, of course. I don't understand any of it, and we're going to do this thing, and a man standing up and everyone's clapping at the podium, clapping, and I'm seeing this man. And everyone, to me, looks like they're praising this man. I mean, And so the man, and that man ended up being a serial pedophile.
Wow.
And I was just old enough to babysit his children. And I was like the go-between in between and all the kids on the block and everything. And I was able to protect my friends and protect my little sister. But nobody believed me. Nobody believed me till years later when he was arrested, and he sits in prison till this day. And then I had told my grandmother what had happened. I didn't have a close relationship with my mom at the time to say anything, and she wasn't there really right there, So I told my grandmother, and, she had ended up getting out to we moved around a lot. So, went to dads and moms. And I remember one time my first run-in with drugs, marijuana, I had basically some girl had asked me for some, and I had sold it to her. And I get pulled into principal's office at school, and they had asked me, "Did you give this to this girl?" And I'm not going to go into the details on that, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm not going down by myself. Yeah. She asked me for it. I didn't just look for a willing participant to hand an innocent somebody something. You know what I'm saying? Like she wanted it, and I pulled out the money in my pocket and showed it to him, and I didn't realize that I'd committed a crime.
Right.
I didn't know it was wrong.
Right.
My parents I didn't know it was wrong. And I didn't know a lot of things were wrong. And then I was always getting trouble, and so I was expelled and sent away, and at the time that I was sent away to my father, he was living in San Diego, and he had this new girlfriend. So my parents, they were married, separated, and they would have significant others. And it was always, with the biker family, the significant others were not, we didn't respect them, just put it that way. We didn't trust in them. We didn't respect them. We didn't like them, any of that, and the alliance was with the parents, and to each other. And so she was from Montana, and she was from an abusive background. And, I remember I think I just turned 13 years old or was about to turn 13 years old because I got expelled and I got sent away from grandparents because they didn't want me on the property because of drugs and this and that, and I didn't understand it. I was going to live with Dad. I remember it was my sister's birthday, and this woman's 2 children were there, and they were about to go take all the kids to the mall to celebrate my sister's birthday. So I know it was my sister's birthday, March 15th, around that time, and my birthday is in April. And so I remember her telling me in the morning, and I was in trouble about something. I was always in trouble. And she said, we're going to go and ask. She says, you know what? I had a conversation with your grandmother. And I was like, caught off guard, and I was like 12,
Right.
and she's like, I got a story from your grandmother, and we have plans for you. We're going to call this person, and we're going to ask this person if these claims that you claim to your grandmother are true. And if it's not true, we're going to give you over to them to let them do whatever they want to with you for your birthday.
Oh my God.
And that right there was the pivoting point of my entire, I knew I was alone, I was alone, and at that point in time, I ran away that day. I ran away, went into juvenile system. I ended up coming home and so on, but started getting in trouble in San Diego. Truancy officer was bringing me home one too many times, and because I was already in juvie once, my dad ended up opening the door and saying, you know what, take this kid to juvie. I'm done. I don't want her. And so during that 6 months was the pivotal point of pain in my life, where it's you've got nobody. Your mom's not here, your dad doesn't even want you, and that was another thing, that stepmother had said to me that day. You can go ahead and tell your dad if you want to, but truth be told, your dad's not even your dad.
That's so powerful, because that's exactly how I felt too. I felt like I had nobody. I really felt like I had nobody, no matter what. And I also still, even though I felt like I had nobody, I still also had that same message that you got, that you have nobody and you could fuck up and have worse. Mm-hmm. You can have worse than nobody. You can have somebody doing something to you or putting you or giving you to somebody or anything that as a punishment or anything, and no protection, no feeling of somebody having your back.
Right.
And it's hard, when you think about somebody in their formative years starting off with that, because the whole purpose of raising a child is to set that foundation, right? So that they would have a sense of security, a stronger sense of self, and the ability to interact with people and have boundaries and interact in a healthy way. But when you spend time not having any real roots and you're bouncing back and forth, and then and you feel like nobody's really has you, it's hard. It's hard. I had the same, and I think that's one of the reasons why you and I identify with each other so much, because of having to have so much survivor in us, right? Where we feel like we've been alone for a really, really long time, and having to get to a place where we can have now people in our lives that we could rely on is a huge accomplishment in and of itself, right?
Right. That's why that first drink, when I took that drink, what happened was, you're not going to hurt me anymore. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm going to stand up for myself. And I just I was I was mean right away, right away. And I also, at that time, sought refuge in the Satanic Church.
Oh,
I
interesting.
did.
Okay.
At that time, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in metal. Heavy metal's always been my thing.
Right.
And they had these ads back in the heavy metal magazines. Mm-hmm. And, and I started writing to this guy, I don't know, whatever, some person of a church, I don't know, and getting, asking questions and so on and so forth. And so what happened was I ended up getting involved, and said that was, because to me, the pain, what I'm saying, if that was your God, I want no part of your God,
Yeah.
And the family unit piece, there was none there. There's no, I am like it,
Right.
So right at that moment, it was like I had to grow up real fast, and, hard, it was hard, and I did end up going into the juvenile system, after that, bouncing around,
How old were you then?
I was 13.
Okay.
They let me come home when you're fresh in the juvenile system, they let you come home and try,
Because they hope that you'll be able to. Yeah.
Right. So you come home for some time, then you're in trouble again, and back and forth, So, but I really felt the cuffs on at 14. Mm-hmm. I went into the system indefinitely, juvenile system. In and out, went to group homes in San Diego. Mm-hmm. I began to, learn, huffing paint, getting involved with marijuana. I wasn't involved with meth at the time. Drinking was always my thing from beginning all the way to end. I've always been drinking because it was easier to hide, and you can always.
And
get
it was so normal. Yeah.
It's so normal. It's not normal to still, rubber cement and huff in the mouth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, for some reason that hasn't been accepted by everybody in society. I just don't know why.
But if you want a beer, okay. Smoke a cigarette.
No problem.
Okay, you're good to go.
Yeah, if you're going to kill yourself, you have to kill yourself in one of the most acceptable ways.
Yeah. Totally. So group homes, in and out of group homes, I met other people that were, come from broken homes and so on, and other people and other kids that were involved in the occult.
Right.
And, and I would seek out the most, I guess you can say, evilest, brokenest individual that I could find.
Right.
Because to me, that was home, seeking refuge with
I did that too. And I feel like that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because they used to say it's like trying to get clean in a mud bath. If everybody that you're interacting with has no tools, right? And they're full of resentments and judgments and stories about self that they haven't worked out. Yeah. And you're feeling a sense of identification and you're not feeling alone anymore, right? I used to think these are my people, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm more likely to keep having the same type of thinking, right? Because now I'm interacting with people that have a similar headspace that I do. Or worse for me is I was trying to rescue them, but I also wore black all the time and wrote poems about death. So I was I was that too. So, okay, so go ahead. So then after your childhood and now how old before you were out of the juvenile system? You went all the way to 18? Okay, 17.
So I was in and out of group homes, in and out, going on, high-speed chases, running from the law, this and that. Finally, they give me an opportunity. They said, hey, we'll let you out to go live with your mother, and she lived in, another city in Southern California, if you allow us to transfer your case there, out of San Diego. And I mean, okay, deal, let's do it. Yeah, where do I sign, And it was Los Angeles area. I didn't realize how difficult that juvenile system was. But luckily for me, everything that the San Diego courts did, we got a letter, and so did the other courts, and they did not, Los Angeles didn't pick up the case in time before San Diego closed it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I slipped through the cracks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I slipped through the cracks. I was looking at 9 years in CYA at the time for all of the crimes that I had done as a juvenile. They say as a juvenile you won't do time. That is wrong.
Right.
That is wrong.
No, you could end up,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you try hard enough.
Yeah, right. So then I'm out, and I'm in Los Angeles, and then through the group homes and stuff, I was introduced to methamphetamine, and so we had graduated to methamphetamine, a lot more rave drugs and things like that, and of course alcohol. And then so when I got to Los Angeles, that was what was on the scene, and I was this kid that 17 years old that just got out of juvenile hall and hot on the scene with my mom, who was riding a Harley. Oh yeah, and she and biker and all the gangs involved. So our house, everybody had to drop their colors because whites, Mexicans, whatever the case may be, whatever color you are, whatever you represent, you were coming to learn from my mother. And she was how to clean your guns, how to do this, and now I'm her daughter, hot on the scene. And so there was a lot of stuff going on with a lot of parents, there that I'm introduced to the kids, and there was a lot of things going on where it's I was the kid that was the parents, hang out with the parents / kid, even though their kids weren't allowed to.
Yes.
Type thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was the black sheep right away. Yeah. And I'm teaching, I'm saying, what are you guys doing? Yeah. I can teach you a better way of doing this. Right. Let me show you how, you know? Yeah, so that's kind of how it was. And then running around and getting involved with gangs right away in Los Angeles. Before I knew it, I was making I was a juvenile, flights, to Roseville, Sacramento, carrying bags, things like that, making money. Mm-hmm. I got involved with PCP, got involved real fast, and so on, it just evolved deeper into the, the darkness, and, when I turned 18, so I was in a car accident. Well, not just me, my mom and my sister, we were in a car accident. And, my mom believes that my dad had a lot to do with it, but they needed the jaws of life to pull us apart. And my sister actually died. Oh. And they brought her back to life. And what happened was we had gained a trust fund inheritance thing. Yeah, at 18. So, now that I think about
grandparent,
this, from the accident, because it was a company truck that hit us and threw us into the ravine, or canal ravine over off the side of the road.
Wow.
They pulled us out, and it was, so when I was 18, I gained, I got this trust fund, and then the party really started. And till this day, I cannot even tell you how much it was, but I needed my mom to sign. Okay, so I had to sign with me to go to the bank to sign, right?
Yeah.
So that to receive this money.
Right.
Next thing you know, we were like major drug dealers in the area, put it that way, and I was just barely turned 18 before I got arrested for a very violent crime as an adult, and went to Twin Towers. I'm not going to get all into the details of street stuff, whatever. I always had a chip on my shoulder with men and people of authority that tried to raise up any kind of authority with me. I was a scrapper. I was a fighter. I will scrap you.
I had very strong authority issues too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, where does
who
this
do you
even
think
come
you
from?
are?
Yeah.
Well, because when you have to be your own, it's like when you grow up and you feel like you have to be your own parent.
Yeah.
When you have to be all the things that's going to protect yourself, it's like you think you're going to, excuse me?
Yeah.
So you feel,
Yeah. So, about that time, I learned, when I was in Twin Towers, I met a wealth of people. Like, I'm serious, like people that, I wasn't familiar. I was graduated to adult jail, and, there was women in there was all sorts, anyways, the whole list goes on, heroin addicts, alcoholics, crack addicts, stud broads, there was like all sorts of stuff, like, they were telling me, hey, strippers, hookers, they're like, hey, you are so cute, like, you know what, you need to make them pay for it to look at you, like, serious, and I was like, yeah, they're like, you are strong, and you know what, you need to become a stripper, and I was like, yeah, I need to become a stripper. I was fresh 18, and I thought, they're like, you are so cute.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm cute. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. So when I got out, right away, I went on to Orange County and I found a dancing company, right? A company, and actually I started dancing for Imperial Theater in Boynton Park, and I started dancing there. And I didn't have all of the stuff, tattoos. That was not a thing then. Yeah, you were So they wanted that amateur baby girl look,
And even people that, when I was a dancer, even people that had tattoos, they had to cover them up.
Yep. Yep, it wasn't a thing.
With
like
the
that
makeup,
so many things were not
so ironic.
The brandishing of religious I don't know, items. The talking about voices in your head. The tattoos, like it was like it was not normal.
Right,
you did not do those things.
Right, you had to act like you were turned on 24/7, and that the only thing you wanted to do was just dance for this person, and that's it.
Yeah, and just totally click right in with it. Yeah. So on the holidays, the clubs got very busy because of the families and the all traveling and all that sort of thing. And and then, in the summer and spring, house calls and frat parties and, hotel parties and things were really big. Yeah. And I worked for a lot of good, like, I don't want to say good, I'm going to say a lot of wild bunches that were, in the industry. And then I think I was like, by the time I was 19 years old, I had raised enough money, aside from my drinking and using, I had raised enough money to become third-party investor in a company. Yeah.
Okay. I think I remember you telling me something about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so it was two guys or whatever the case may be. I was young.
Oh, I remember the story.
I got taken for a ride. I did. I got taken for a ride on it, not knowing anything. So, but anyways, we got raided, I was at Irvine Spectrum. I got raided and, I went down. I caught
Did they get arrested too?
Yeah.
They did?
One did not. One ran. One skipped.
And they never caught?
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. But I was being chained with, I literally was, we were like all chained together to go to the court, like with all these people, office people. Right. Like I knew their names via email and stuff and cell phone, but I didn't know their faces, I was like, oh, you're so-and-so. Okay. And I'm like, wow, this is the entire office.
And what were you charged with?
I was charged with pimping and pandering, prostitution, possession, under the influence, of course, and I had violated my informal probation from my adult case that got me to Twin Towers, So I got 3 years and 8 months in the pen for that. And I was barely 19, and I remember most of my 20s I spent in and out of prison. So pretty much 14 to 29 in and out of prisons. I remember when I got to Chowchilla State Prison, 19 years old, I was like, because you hear the stories, right? You hear the stories, and I was hanging out with all the penitentiary bound individuals, anyways, and
penitentiary bound individuals.
Penitentiary bound. Like one of the prerequisites was you had to have either been to prison, on your way to prison. It was like
know somebody, whatever.
Parole.
Have the kind of thinking that maybe that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you meet a lot at strip clubs, at parties.
Oh yeah. But also, it's kind of interesting too, because you're a very intelligent person, and so here you are putting all your energy into being better at, smarter than, I'm going to get, what's the edge to this? What could I do? And like, if you had all that with a healthier foundation, all that could have been put towards something else. But not to say this shouldn't happen, because first of all, it's a great story. But second of all, also, what a great message when you get through this. It's like, it's amazing the stuff that you got to experience. I feel like I lived a very colorful life too, and I don't regret it being colorful.
Yeah, me either.
And I don't regret my past at all. I do feel though it's looking at it squarely and recognizing that, wow, if I would have put all of that thinking and that energy into having, into doing the next right thing, the healthier thing or whatever like that, like what that could have looked like, Okay, so now you come out of prison.
Come out of prison.
And...
Come out of prison, land in Los Angeles. This is when I began to meet people in Hollywood. And Hollywood was my stomping grounds. Like, that was like people, the cops are not looking for a drunk hooker-ish girl involved in small cells. They're looking for murderers. They're looking for the guys that I fall in love with.
So you could just blend in.
the guys that I fall in love with.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. They actually do. They pull you over, they throw your stuff away, send you on your way. Like, literally.
Yeah.
Orange County, on the other hand, or any other county, or Riverside, or other places in Southern California, you're going to prison. Like, that's it. So, I literally got involved in... this is crazy. I can't believe I'm saying it, but yeah, I got involved in, deeper involved in the sex rings, shows, specialty shows. I always was like a business woman though, because
that's not surprising.
I always was a businesswoman, and I remember like I would have like 6 to 7, 8 narcotics on me at any one time, because not that I used them all, just because certain men would call and they would want, it was a double package deal. It was a night double package deal. It was like $5,000 for me for a night for me. Like it could be $3,000 to $5,000, like easy. You're there. There's no let's wait for this or that. Like you got it with you. So that became my business, where I was the dealer, also the sex peddler and the dealer, and so on. And a lot of high, I would say clientele, before long I was getting involved in, also, I don't know how this all came about, but, robbing banks and getting involved with that sort of thing. A lot of other stuff, a mistaken identity on purpose, walking in, create, you are that person and just taking over their life type thing. A lot of the mind games that come with it. So it was business on a mind game level. And sex was always part of it too. Yeah. So it was like coming in and assuming the position and like doppelganging people's lives. Yeah. And that was the hustle. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, so what then had to happen for a change? What then had to happen for you had you been exposed to 12-step recovery before?
I had. I was exposed to 12-step recovery in a group home. My very first job at 16 years old was setting appointments at a kind of like a recovery, spot. Okay. It was counseling / meetings.
Oh, okay.
Spot. So I would, but I would,
That's
I
ironic.
I was selling drugs out of there.
Yeah.
At 16
crazy.
too. I was like,
oh my
right away.
God. I'm like, how does that happen? How did you get that job?
Through the system.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, being a part of the
I
system,
can see that. Yeah.
you can always fall back on the system for the system's help. And I did do that. Was the pivotal turn for me later on,
Yeah.
10 more years of in and out of jails, prisons, doing the same thing, take me 30 days to set up shop, lose the, jail weight, and then make enough money to get on a roll again. And then, I would always be violated with the new commit. I would always be going back to the prison with, meaning in violation of what I was on parole on, and then with the new charges. So, was like
So
for
what
10
had to
years.
happen for you to say this time is going to be different? Like I'm going to
Actually, the state stepped in and said, it's time for you to go to treatment. And I was like, oh, no. I didn't pick to go to treatment. I was out on like Prop 36 parole, Prop 36 probation, one county, Prop 36 probation fighting a high-profile case in another county. And they said, you need to go to treatment. And I was like, what? They didn't know.
What?
No.
You don't know me.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
No. And I did not want to go, but I did go.
How did they make you go?
Well, it was either that or I was looking at 6 to 9 years.
Okay.
So they said, we're going to, if you want to do this program, in order to do the program, I had to do detox, of course. Mm-hmm. So do detox and then the program, and we're going to wait for you to complete this program, and then we'll reassess your cases. By that time. So I was in manipulation mode. I had like a yellow folder for this county, a blue folder. And I was like, yeah, we're doing this. And
that's why they pose it that way. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, they want to give you that you make the choice, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. But they're really making it for you.
Right. And so I went, yeah, exactly. The lesser of two evils.
Although I've heard people say that they would rather go to jail or whatever than actually.
I did say that. I said I would rather take 16 months. Can I just sign? That's 8.5 months, and then I can be out. And they said, oh, no. No. We're going to get you to. So I went in and I did the treatment, and I met members of Alcoholics Anonymous there, and I wasn't familiar with AA. Like I was familiar with the meetings. I never work steps. I never, did anything about recovery. I would just show up to meetings, falsify a signature on a court card, mm-hmm, and then that was the extent of it ever. And then any other program I was ever, enrolled in, I never completed, because to me, it did not mean that Gretta had to be abstinent. I would sneak around, pop the bottle, this and that. I was doing parole, so if you do parole and if you can manipulate parole,
right,
it's like,
right, nobody's testing you. Right. That's actually a really good point. Or were you getting drug tested?
Oh yes, but I knew how to manipulate that.
Right.
Oh yeah, when you do parole and you can manipulate the parole testing, that's the ultimate, then nothing else, anything else is water under the bridge, basically.
Okay, awesome. So at this point, we're going to take a break. Please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. See you in a bit. Welcome back to The Real Recovery Show. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on the PHLV radio app or get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And you could also go to themeetingspace.com and click on The Real Recovery Show and see all of our episodes listed there. There's several episodes, all with different topics, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback about it. And if you're interested in being on a future episode, you can click on the intake form on that page and fill it out and select all the different topics that you'd be interested in, and write a little bit about yourself, and maybe you could be on an upcoming episode. So yeah. So now we're back from break, and we're going to go back to Gretta's story. Before the break, we talked about what led up to getting into recovery, and now we're going to talk about her experience in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay, so yeah. So when I got out of prison, I was able to go into a program, and I did 5 months in the program. I got a sponsor right away. Pretty much I got involved, they told me, if you're not involved in service, then you're missing a very important piece in your recovery. So I looked around and I found those that were doing things, their feet were moving in the rooms, because I was sick and tired of living my life. I was sick and tired of going to prison. I wanted a different life. And really, the members, the other members that gone before me that were not, afraid to really speak and say what was really going on with them, let me know that I was not alone and I was not by myself, and that there was a possible solution for me if I was to, follow those that seemingly the problem was solved, and not the ones that are reliving their problems, re-injuring themselves in recovery. I didn't want to be that, and so I got involved, got myself a sponsor. She was highly involved in her lineage, so to speak, with her sponsor and their sponsor. They were all involved. H&I was a huge thing.
Which is hospitals and institutions.
Hospitals and institutions. And I remember my very first panel. I had my get well job, so to speak, get well job in music industry in downtown Fullerton, and I didn't even have a car. I rode a bus, and I lived in sober living, and I, was barely learning how to live uninstitutionalized. Right. And I would call women to pick me up, and I would tell them that you would need to drive us to my panel because I don't have a car.
Oh, God.
That's how willing I was, you know, and I just took on one panel because I didn't have a car. Anyway, so. And
the panel was at a hospital, or?
It was actually at a woman's home in San Juan Capistrano, way far away from, you know, the other side of, Orange County. Okay. So it was a long drive, and then, so I got involved and I started, I took on more and more panels. I took on commitments at H&I, got involved. We did service commitments. We did H&I conferences. We did area meetings. I set up chairs, served spaghetti, whatever I needed to do to get out of myself, along with working the steps. And my sponsor, she was like, look, let's get in the car. Shut up. Let's get in the car. Let's go. That was what she would say. Don't ask. Let's go. And that's what I did, and I worked my way up the chain to a point where I was able to fill out applications and, for the prisons and it was 3 years in, after being out of trouble, basically. I was able to
because they do the background check and everything. So you have to be 3 years?
3 years. It was 3 years, no charge, 3 years off parole, 3 years of your last, anything and everything.
I never knew that. Okay.
And then they wanted me to write a letter of what I was doing with my life. And at that time, I was going to college, which the state was covering for me because paying for me to go because I wanted to change my life. I started in prison. I took my GED there.
That's beautiful.
I got involved in MRT. I got involved in stress management. I got involved in anger management, anything that I could do. Journaling the little girl, family dynamics, all of it, and they said, okay, well, we will pay for you to go to college. 4 years.
You went to college for what?
At first, I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor.
Everybody
of course.
does.
And then And then I got to study it, and I was like, no, that's not me. So that is so not me. And so I went into this is crazy. So I changed my major to business management and marketing.
That's
and sociology. I love the social deviance. I studied
me
about
too.
us, man,
oh my God,
and I loved it.
And even studying about business, learning about human nature. I loved it.
I had the hustle. Might as well hone in on it, right? And so, and then, later on I ended up opening my own business, starting my own business. I'm very OCD. So I was able to start a personal organizing business and capitalize on a defect. I made a lot of money doing it.
That's awesome.
And a woman met me and she said, you know what, would you come with me back into the industry and I'll train you. And what it was admissions. So how to do verification of benefits, basically the firing line of hustling people into treatment and dealing with the codependent families. And she trained me. She was very ADD. I was very OCD.
Wow.
You know?
This is what I mean, like putting all that great intelligence and bull attitude and just and putting it to the right things. And man, you're like a force to be reckoned with.
Well, thank you so much. I was part of opening many treatment centers on the firing lines, doing, handling, the whole collecting the money, verifying the benefit, doing all this, getting people in, getting them to understand why they needed treatment and how we can help, and that's what I still do today.
So how did it feel? How did it feel when you got to go into the prisons after you had spent a lifetime in them?
I still get to go into the prisons. I get to go this week too.
Yes, it's so awesome. But what was your first experience going in there?
I was scared, and thank God my sponsor,
like you felt like he might keep you,
went with me. Yes, they actually
That's such a weird feeling.
Once, and check this out. So they actually had an alarm once, and I asked the lady, "Do we get down?"
Do we what?
Do we get down on the ground? All the offenders have to get on the ground, right? They get on the ground and on their stomachs until no movement. And I realized that I had PTSD.
Yes.
She said, no, we don't get on the ground. Keep walking.
Oh, my God.
I felt like this pull.
It's kind of like Shawshank Redemption because you're like deinstitutionalized. But I feel like I'm supposed to also get down on the ground.
I did, and then you're like talking, and you're like meeting them on their level, and then things are happening, but you're not on that side. Yeah. You're on this side, and it's like a queer gravitational pull.
What a trip! Yeah, what a trip!
Very much.
Awesome. And then being of service is so important. Sometimes people hear about that in recovery and they think, okay, it's just to keep busy and whatever like that. It really isn't. No. There's something about being useful, and not just being useful, but when you open your mouth and you want to be truly helpful, the stuff that comes out to share about your life and your experience and your strength and your hope, it strengthens the gratitude. It strengthens the focus on the solution in your own mind. And it also reminds you how far you've come. And you get to see people who are where you were. And you get to say, wow, you could be that example now. And, so here you were growing up and you had all these people who you identified with, right? Who maybe knew more about the crime or the behavior or whatever, the drugs or whatever. You learned from them, right? And then you go into recovery and you see people who have what you want, and you stick with the winners and you really, really, really want it. And you get into service. And now you get to be that example. So powerful.
Most importantly is that I was able to overcome, I had fenced the whole God thing for a long time through my 20s, for a good 7 years, before I would drag my feet over, I was actually, kicked out of my own satanic cult for being under the influence too much, drinking and using, and so unpredictable. But to find that, find a relationship with God, a God of my understanding, that wasn't punishing, that it wasn't all of these things, that I was forced upon me as childhood, and that in my mind hurt me, So, to me, it doesn't matter where you are, physically, if you can help unlock the bondage that's literally in the head,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And I see it every day, all the time with offenders behind the walls,
absolutely.
And they get out. They get out, and that's what I needed. I needed that psychic change to start so that I can stop doing what I'm doing. It's kind of like, going back to the abusive relationship when you know better, when
you're mad at God, it's like, because whatever you want to call it higher power, call it higher consciousness, intuition, higher God, whatever. But when you're mad at God, you're mad at something that you are connected to intuitively within you. And it creates such a discomfort that in and of itself, you don't want to be in your own skin. It's like there has to be.
I have a perfect story for that.
Yeah, there has to be working that out.
A perfect story about that. This year, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Thank you.
And for me, it's like, I was the health guru. I've got 15 years sober. My sobriety date is 12/106.
I'm
Don't
working
you
out
know
all the
who I am? I'm
time.
working out all the
Yep.
time. I'm doing all of the things, and I'm
Right.
eating all, and all this sort of thing. And to wake up and be like, and I don't go to the doctor and all these
Right.
things. And they're like, oh no, you have stage 4 cancer and you have 4 tumors. And basically, I was extremely upset after everything that I've gone through, after everything that I've walked through, after this far, and now, and then after that, to learn that you're going to have cancer forever.
Yeah.
And then there's facets to the acceptance of this deal, and I was very upset and very mad. And so I did not believe or think, why me? Because why not me? We were never promised to be unscathed on this world. I don't believe in it, and so it's like we live in man's world. I mean, COVID in a petri dish, whatever.
And lessons.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but now here we are, and it's like, how did I get there? If not for, there was a beautiful woman, old counselor that called me and said, Greta, I'm going to tell you what, girls like you and I that come from where we come from, we cannot afford to have a resentment against God, and you need to work through it or you're going to die.
Absolutely.
You're going to die. And she said, get on your knees. I'm on the phone with you now, and I want to hear your knees touch the carpet.
Yes. Beautiful.
And I did. I did it. And I didn't want to do it because I was mad. And she says, by the way, self-pity doesn't look good on you.
Yeah, I love that.
And I was like, what? She jolted me out. It was another member that I, like, recovery amnesia. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then to learn that the cancer is in your blood now. And then to learn that, at some point, this injection that you need every 28 days is going to fail you. And it can be 1 year from now. It can be 3 years from now. It can be, they know of one person who has 20, and then you will die. And to accept that, I'm not going to say I'm in a 100% acceptance with it because that's not true.
Right.
But I am way more in acceptance with it. One thing in my recovery journey is that continually always happened, that once I finally surrendered through acceptance, whatever it was that I was fighting in my journey, as soon as I can accept it and get into, God can, my higher power could come through, come through with, like a miracle turning things. So everything I ever thought that was the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me always turned out to be the most biggest blessing of all. I'm not there yet right now. But I am starting to see it manifest. And even when we do get there,
because I've had a lot of heavy illnesses, and like there was a point 8.5, 9 years ago where I was told I was going to die, have organ failure, stopping breathing all through the day, all through the night. God, I couldn't even walk. I was so swollen, my whole body. I would like lose feeling, seizuring, all the stuff that was happening. And like when that was happening, it was like it forced me deeper. It forced me to really recognize that I was really the soul having the human experience,
100%.
not the body having the spiritual experience.
I'm so glad you said that. Because I see everything differently now.
Right.
And I was driving, and I was speeding, driving my fast car because I can.
Right.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
And so anyways, and then this thought came into my head and said, you could die. You could wreck and die. And then another thought came in my head and said, so you're going to die anyways.
Yeah.
And another thought came in my head and said, everything here, that every car, every house, every bank account, everything here is borrowed.
It's all
Nothing
temporary.
is going with you. And I was like, ooh, this is scary. I was like having a moment where I realized, I don't know, like everything is just everything, even the fence, even the road, everything is just borrowed. Nothing means anything other than the lesson that you're using to persevere through.
When I was a kid, I had this one experience. I was sitting outside of the elementary school, Forest Park, in Dix Hills, Long Island, New York. And I had this spiritual awareness, like for the moment, because I had all this trouble fitting in and all that, whatever. And I had the child abuse at home and all the stuff. And I had this moment where I felt like this power greater than myself had like told me, don't buy into any of this. None of this. And it stayed with me forever. And there's so many times in my recovery experience where my mind would go back to that thought, that conversation, if you will, that realization, because and I love that you said this, when you get to a place acceptance doesn't mean that this is what you choose to be, like all the things. Acceptance says, God, show me another way of seeing this. Obviously, this is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
But I also believe in miracles too. I believe that when I turn things over and I'm willing to do the next right thing and I'm willing to shift my perception, that solutions start to appear. And even if there'll either be a solution to the problem or there'll be a shift about the problem, either way, I'm better off because this is temporary. All of it is temporary.
Even doing the next right thing, people can only meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And doing the next right thing for you may not be somebody else's opinion of what the next right thing is, and you have to be true to yourself.
Oh, your family probably had all their opinions about that.
Absolutely. I know.
Which is so funny because back in the day when nobody really, was really there, but now everybody has an opinion about how you're supposed to be handling cancer.
And it's like, and the thing of it is like this, and this whole next right thing,
is your own internal next right thing. You're not going to have
friends. People are not going to like. It's not. It doesn't mean just because you're doing the next right thing for you doesn't mean that it's going to be pretty.
Right.
Because it's not pretty. And there's going to come a time, and I know there's going to come a time when I'm going to have to make a decision for myself down the line. And I know this. But let me just tell you, God has already started the miracle on the upswing. I'm getting contacted from so many people, like either in the program or not in the program, just around because my old mentor had said to me that I have this uncanny ability to be vulnerable and allow my truth to be told, right?
Yes.
And so people have seeked me out about cancer and pain meds and this and that and everything, and there's a lot to go with that. And the thing of it is like, just because I had 7 surgeries and had to go through pain medication and whatever the case may be to get through it does not mean that I'm not sober.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I had to do what I had to do.
Absolutely.
And I still have to do what I have to do here and there. You know what I'm saying? And like my sponsor had told me, it's not between other people and their opinions, it's between you and God.
That's so important. It is so important. Also, like how in Alcoholics Anonymous, when they say that you should be able to go anywhere, right? So you should be, if you're spiritually fit and your motives are right, you should be able to go anywhere where alcohol is served or people are doing certain types of behaviors and be relatively immune, right? So when you have the right purpose for taking medication or taking pain medication, intent and motive, and you've prayed, you're taking care of the risk factor of whether or not you could go off into it and become like active in it past the point of need, right? Somebody actually told me this and it resonates with me. I never really researched about it, but it really, really resonates. She said that when you take pain medicine for pain that you have, that it actually goes to the pain. It's when you don't have the pain and you're taking it for a whole different reason that it goes to the addiction.
Interesting there. Oh, that's interesting. Right? Yeah. You know what? And the head gets real loud. Yeah. The head's loud, and the number one play in the playbook of, I want to say, addiction, period, is isolation.
Yes.
And you can be isolated in a room, in an alcoholics meeting, and in a full room.
Because you're all up in your head.
And you could have 15 years sober, and you could be sitting in a room about, this happened to me. This happened to me a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And my disease said to me, what are you even doing here? Like, what are you even, you're going to die. Like, what are you even doing? And it had me isolated in a room. Yeah. And if not for the tools that I had learned through the program, I had to use 5 tools at once that night. Yeah. But you had them to use. Yeah, exactly. But you had them. And so what do you think it would have been like? What do you think if, because it's not like you get into recovery and you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and then you're sober for a while and you get cancer. It's that you're living your life and you get cancer. And the fact that you went to Alcoholics Anonymous, you got sober and you made all these improvements and you learned new tools and you healed old resentments and you still have that attitude of keep healing and healing and healing and being helpful means that the Gretta who ends up dealing with cancer is a Gretta who can deal with the cancer. Whereas if Gretta didn't go to recovery and was still running and gunning, and then that happened, with all the stuff that you were doing that you had no control over at the time, that Gretta would not be able necessarily to make it through this. She probably would have said one big fuck it. I had one friend that called me last December, telling me that she was relapsed on fentanyl and she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she wasn't strong like me, and she couldn't do it, and she ended up overdosing in February. And I knew her. We walked our journey, and there was 7 of us, and right now there's only 2 of us left.
Yeah.
All since last October in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so I get to live for them today, and I get to walk for them today. And
I just got the chills.
And I get to show up for those and teach them about the acceptance and the 5 stages of grief. But with cancer, we only have 4.
Really?
There's no 5. There's no negotiation.
Oh, right. Right.
You lose the negotiation stage. And I called my old sponsor, and she told me, you need to fall apart. It's okay. And I think that you just figured out that there's no negotiation stage, and you're lost in the 5 stages of grief.
Do you know something? And I really vehemently believe this, that we have such an issue with letting go and falling apart. But what we're holding together is toxic. Yeah. We're holding together the story of who we think we're supposed to be and what we think our life is supposed to be like. And we're so attached to the outside that the inside we don't live enough in the inside. And it's something about our experience shaking up our life like a snow globe that forces us to either in addiction check more out, or in recovery check more in. Yeah. And there's something very powerful about learning over and over and over again what's really important.
To fall apart, to come together, I needed another woman to give me permission.
Yeah.
And you know what? And ever since then, we've been on the upswing of emotional and mental healing with this situation, with cancer and recovery and all of that. And things are turning beautiful again, okay? Because, and I can live, and it's all about what I have today. It really is about that. What I get to do, what I get to participate in, who I get to love, how we get to love, and all of that, because all of that goes with us, and making the memories with those that count. You know what I'm saying? And that's really what it's all about, because none of that other stuff is going with us anyways.
Right.
And,
you don't take it with you.
That's absolutely correct. And,
but even still, so we all eventually die. But how are we living? Are we living in a way that we're living in a way as if we're already dead? Or are we living in a way, and what I mean by that, it sounds kind of morbid. No, what I mean by that is what I mean by that is there are people, and I've done this, where you literally sleepwalk through your life and you're just focused on all the things that don't matter, and you're stressed and you have horrible days over all the things that don't matter.
Emotional. And
did you live that day? Are you living? And when stuff like this happens, it invites us to get right, come from the inside out rather than the outside in what's important. And, I love your walk. I love you. I love that you're willing to come on the show and share your story, because people need to know that there are tools, and that Alcoholics Anonymous is way more than just about not drinking and doing drugs. So
it teaches you to figure out where you are at with your higher power, because that's what it is in the end. Nobody's going to stand next to you and intercede for you. And who are you helping today? Yeah. And even with me being sick with cancer and afflicted with addiction forever, I'm not talking about active addiction. Right. I'm talking about I'm never going to be cured.
Programming.
Yeah, I'm never going to be cured.
Right.
I'm talking about, I'm still out there helping people, find their way to a better life, find their way out of their pain with their cancer, believing whatever they're believing, and those get out of behind the walls, you know what I'm saying, and have a life to get with their children and their families by changing through the program.
That's beautiful. Your message is very beautiful.
Thank you so much.
If you think you can't walk through things in your life, and if you have any reservations that you believe that if you would stay sober as long as you don't lose this, or you stay sober as long as you don't have cancer, or you stay sober as long as somebody doesn't die, or you stay sober, the message is that you could stay sober through everything if you take that road and you take it one step at a time, and you really give to it what you gave to your addiction. Amazing things happen, shifts in perception, and a life that is way better, even with whatever happens, way better than it would have been had you just kept focusing on checking out. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining us today on the Real Recovery Show. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio here in Las Vegas. See you next week.